country, and I commend this bill to the House.
This is a split call. I call Kiritapu Allan.
Madam Speaker, for those that don't perhaps live in the Wellington bubble, the name the State Sector and Crown Entities Reform Bill might not come across to some as the most riveting and interesting of legislation. However, the state sector, for any ordinary layperson, effectively is the day-to-day interaction that most people ever will have with the government. And therefore, the way in which the state sector conducts itself and represents itself to the ordinary Jane and Joe blogs of our communities is inherently important. And so the reforms that this omnibus bill seeks to undertake in both the under both the State Services Act and the Crown Entities Act, and it's good to hear that there is common agreement across the House, basically is to ensure that there is transparency, that the public can trust what the state sector is doing on its behalf, and to make sure that it's fit for a current and modern context. So, Madam Chair, there's really only a couple of things I want to speak to. Starting with the State Services Act, the ability of the State Services Commissioner to undertake inquiries is probably one of the most, it's probably one of the most important elements of the reforms that this bill will bring through. And look, the Commission of Inquiries Act 1908, it's been a very useful act that the State Services Commissioner has had to operate on, but we know that it has been cumbersome. We know that there has been challenging, particularly in recent times, in the ability of the Commissioner to undertake relevant inquiries. So to bring it into alignment with the Inquiries Act 2013, it's common sense practice, and so this side of the House we do commend our Minister for bringing through those amendments. Turning to the Crown Entities Act, and this is probably some more of the values and principles alignments that I'm really pleased to see that we're bringing in through this piece of legislation. What we did see and what we have seen, I think both sides of the House had concerns about the way in which those in executive positions, and particularly the chief officer, the CEO positions, we're watching remuneration escalate into the six-digit figures, whereas the gap between the executive level and the ordinary worker was becoming just further and further apart. And there were concerns expressed under the previous government, and recommendations were made by ministers to the relevant boards. Those recommendations, and this is particularly apparent in both ACC and superannuation, those recommendations weren't taken by those boards, and there was little really that could be done. So by bringing into, by enacting the amendments in this bill, one, to limit the remuneration, or at least have the remuneration of the CEO position affirmed by the Commissioner, and whether is there a dispute, then the Minister will have to come in and work with the board to make the relevant amendments. That's, I think, a prudent measure that increases, I think, will increase the public's trust and confidence in the fact that our government will be a backstop, or that the Minister will be a backstop in terms of making sure that there isn't an unbridled abilities by those boards to let that remuneration go out of control. And then secondly, Madam Speaker, of course, is that having that 5-year term as a starting point for Crown entity, for those in Crown entities. Of course, that's renewable, so that's good. That gives certainty to those that want to be involved on those Crown entities and to that board that they can do the necessary planning. But the buck is that there must be that review at that 5-year point. So I think that the public can have trust and confidence in both the state services sector and the amendments that we are bringing through in terms of the Crown entities to make sure that they are controlled and that there are measures put in place. And so, with those brief comments, Madam Speaker, we can bring this bill to the House.
Madam Speaker.
I call Matt King.
There's a good argument here for having these sorts of bills reserved